going on, everybody? First week of this self-update, week-to-week programming thing. I'm going to show you guys how I do my own coaching. I'm going to kind of treat this like I would update a typical client. Lifting, I won't even really talk about because if you guys want to see that, there's an entire series on that day. So I'll have a little bit. First things first, when you're coaching yourself or anyone really, you got to put yourself in the right mindset because extremely goal driven. We're naturally very emotional beings, and all of those things can interfere and kind of cloud logical judgment, which is what you need when you're working with programming and percentages. And first things first, as I always remind myself, probably the best piece of advice I ever got. This was from Brandon Sen, Chris Steffen's coach. How do you program for someone to that level? Like, how do you wrap your head around that? Some of the numbers and stuff. And he told me every time he goes in to do the plan, you got to remind yourself to completely emotionally separate. And even when the digits start getting into thousands and four digits and stuff like that, 900 pounds week after week after week, these rules, this data, the percentages says that he can do it, and you can't let your own fear or emotion get in the way of a certain number selection or a certain movement selection. In the same way that when you're programming for yourself or others, you can't let your own ego cause the same effect. You can't constantly pick those bigger numbers. You can't keep stretching up into the higher ranges when you're not ready for them, purely because you are chasing a set number or a goal, or you just aren't emotionally capable from that mindset. Lots and lots of marijuana and stimulants. The movement selection. What is the goal and the intent of this block? One that requires us to look at the previous training block, which is 16 weeks of prep leading into Rainier. It was a little bit of an untraditional prep because before that was purely hypertrophy, and I was only deadlifting have much like back fatigue, like CNS and back fatigue, actual spinal loading going on. So that in itself is a capacity that needs to be developed and expanded. And a lot of my prep was set up to increase that capacity because I had 6 events that required literally all of that. So it wasn't that I wasn't strong enough for the weights. Really, the only thing that I had to get much stronger for was the dumbbell, and even that, I wouldn't even say that strength was the focus. It was really dialing in the technique. I've pressed a 235 several years ago, so again, strength wasn't the main concern. It was nailing it so perfectly that whatever dumbbell they put in front of me, I could complete that weight. It's such a technical lift at such a heavy weight that really perfection and speed and an accumulation of perfect reps was really the only way to go about that. So there wasn't much that was any sort of max effort, really anything. I combined what I took from all the hypertrophy. I added aerobic capacity and work capacity, higher pain tolerance, higher recovery tolerance, and set myself up so that win the card or not, I am in a much better position to start training strongman. Because for anyone who's seriously gotten into it, there's really nothing that can prepare you for the types of fatigue and the pains that you go through. They're all good pains and quite a bit of a shock, and at sometimes was quite literally inhibiting some of my movements and day-to-day stuff. So that has to be built up in the same way the weight on your bench press has progressed. So that leads me into my approach for the deadlift. I was joking around a lot during prep about how little I was deadlifting. The reason why was because it wasn't because I didn't train for that event as intentionally and as hard as every other event. Really, what it was is that I had so much that I needed to work on and practice on the other stuff that I needed to save my back for those things. And that combined with it being a car deadlift, I worked mostly leg pressing, hack squatting, failure training, and things like that. A starting point strength block, if you will, getting my basics ramped back up to where they were. That leads us into the program. It's extremely basic. A lot of my beginner strongmen look like that don't have a show picked out. Log, we've got deadlifts, we've got box squats, we've got stones, we've got farmers, obviously. Once in a while, I'm going to kind of auto regulate throwing, maybe a random event day of some different stuff. I have a couple local level competitions just as random training days that I use as event days. So I'm just going to auto regulate some practice on the events significantly more frequently than what I was before the contest. The other main factor of choosing these movements was the OSG qualifiers, which just so happened to work out in my favor to be extremely conducive to what I already wanted to do, which is to just generally get better at the basics of strongman. We have a 1 rep max overhead press. Any bar, anyhow, out of the rack, clean it, as long as it is not behind the neck, and I don't think dumbbell counts, unfortunately. We got a 3 rep max deadlift, regular bar from the floor. I think deadlift bar, they didn't specify, so I'm just going to use a deadlift bar. Use a suit, a Atlas Stone strongman seminar towards the end of July, where I'm going to be doing a lot of teaching on the technique. I'm going to be taking AMRAP at an exciting weight. So obviously training stones. And then box squats is the other big one, specifically with the band tension. That's with the bands is about building back up my tolerance to load my knee in a wider squat stance, since I've been doing pretty much most everything narrow and or light / rehab type work for the legs. Reps and weights a little bit here. 5 sets of 1 at 185. It was three or 4 days after the contest. I was beat to shit. I was also in the car the entire time. This 8 days after the show. 1 day after we got back, feeling fresh at 585, just as an opening set. I'm trying to get. I haven't pulled heavy like this since I was about 305 pounds. Currently waking up 261. I've started to venture down under 260. Anyways, using the suit as a stepping stone to get my strength back, to get accumulated to that same weight that I was pulling. Probably take it off and just start pulling raw. It doesn't really feel like it's doing a whole lot. Can't really tell, maybe just a little bit. Even if it's a placebo, that's fine with me. I'm still down at 60 pounds since when I was pulling really anything. So farmers, it's my weakest event, hands down. By far, biggest hole in the game. I am going to eat, breathe, and sleep farmers until it is my best. So that is going in there, unless there's a 1 week where I'm gonna replace it with yoke or something, just to give myself a little bit of a break, because they're pretty complimentary. But I am getting good at farmers. That's the deal. Same with deadlift. Doing a progression I've talked about before, just nailing myself with singles. Again, this is so that I don't re-hurt my knee. I hurt it on a push press, and that's what the lift I'm going to do to qualify. So I really just want to make sure that knee is solid before I take a heavier weight. I quickly change that to regular bench press. Select movements that are more supportive to load and less exposure angles. So stuff that I can just generally handle more weight in week to week. I have this cue that helps me get back into deadlift, where I'm thinking about pressing into the ground rather than pulling, and I typically use pause deadlifts for this. and I've seen a lot of people doing the pins. I wanted to try it. It's not bad. It works for a lot of people. I can completely see the purpose, but for whatever reason, I prefer the pausing. So I work those in probably between 135 and 315, just when I'm warming up for my normal stuff. Just trying to nail that position right below the knees. Reverse Nordic curl. That's in there purely off anecdotal evidence. My best deadlifting progress was happening when I was training with Ben in Tampa, and this was the first time that I had used this machine. I was using it every single week, and Ben and I both saw just a noticeable head turning difference. Anytime I get into a gym and there's a reverse Nordic curl, I'm on it, and I spend as much possible time on those as I can. This block, I am increasing both weight and band tension pretty much every week for the first 3 or 4 weeks, just to get myself back to kind of close to where I was. This is all pretty low weights for me. Once I kind of get to a good point, I'll start using the same weight and then just increasing the band tension each week, or I'll stick with the same band tension, increase the weight each week. I haven't fully decided that yet. That's still up in the air. Belt squat. If you guys haven't tried belt squats with a wedge, try it. Try them heavy. That's all I'm going to say about that one. So yeah, that's the first 2 weeks. I think that's it. I'll put this link in the description along with the stone videos and my diet as well if you guys want to check those out. DM me on Instagram or send me an email if you guys want coaching, if you guys have any questions, whatever it is. Thanks for watching. Bye.